Okay, great. So I believe that we are live. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. We are back with another great panel discussion. These were a huge hit during our first annual workshop, and we decided to kind of continue them throughout the year. So today, we are joined by Velvet Brown, Richard White, Julie Landsman, and Marie Speziale. I hope I pronounced your last name right. I do apologize. And today, our chat is entitled Visionaries in the Brass World, Paving the Way for Excellence. And the chat is exactly what the title entails. So I'd like to just get right to it. So if each of you wouldn't mind just briefly introducing yourselves for people who may not know who you are, and just sharing a little bit about what you currently do and what you're up to.
Are we going in alphabetical order?
Go in whatever order you'd like. If you'd like to start, Marie, feel free.
Oh, alphabetical order, certainly. Hi, I'm Velvet Brown, and I am currently Distinguished Professor of Music at Penn State University, and also artist faculty at the Peabody Institute at Johns Hopkins University. I live in State College, Pennsylvania, and I play tuba, and I teach tuba and euphonium, and avid chamber music performer, soloist, and orchestral musician. And I think that's good for the introduction.
And good morning from sunny Southern California, my new home, where I've accepted a position at USC. I'm not sure what the title is, but I know I teach French horn. It's got one of those adjuncts or associates, I don't know. And I also teach at the Juilliard School. I've got 1.5 more years before I retire from Juilliard, where I've been teaching since '89. And before all of this school stuff, I was the principal horn of the Metropolitan Opera from 1985 to 2010. 25 years on the hot seat. And I've since been doing some freelancing, but not in the last year. It's been a very dry spell for horn playing, but extremely busy on Zoom. And I'm really happy to see my friends on this Facebook Live today. Friends who are near and dear to my heart from the professional world. Greetings, colleagues.
I guess I'm next. Greetings from sunny Florida.
What?
Yes. You didn't know?
No.
Yeah. Age has its privileges, my dear. I'm back in Tampa, Florida, where I grew up. Almost my entire family's down here. I do have the luxury of going back to Cincinnati in the summers. When it gets really hot down here, I go back up to Cincinnati. I was for 32 years the associate principal trumpet of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, followed by 4 years at Indiana University, followed by chairing the brass department and professor of trumpet down at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Gosh, what else? I'm supposed to be retired, but in many respects, I feel like I'm almost as busy as when I was working full time, doing so many things. Oh, and in there, while I was in Cincinnati, I taught at the College Conservatory of Music and at Miami University. I have an affiliation with the International Women's Brass Conference on their honorary board. I'm also on the board of the American Classical Music Hall of Fame, and I teach at Round Top in the summer. And there's a barky dog in the background that I may attend to before he interferes with this session. So if I excuse myself for a few minutes, may I? I need to shush up a little. His name is actually Niccolo Paganini Speziale, but he's Nico for short. I'll be back.
I guess that means I'm up. I'm Richard Antoine White, aka Raw Tuba, and at the moment, I'm just trying to keep up with this magnificent panel. I'm in awe right now. I am principal tubist of New Mexico Philharmonic Santa Fe Symphony and associate professor of tuba and euphonium at the University of Mexico, where I hope come June 30th, I will be joining the ranks of full professor. So I'm really excited about that. Currently, my life is more motivational speaking than tuba, but I'm okay with that. And that's my short little intro bio. I'm going to keep it short because I want to get to the questions and hear all these magnificent stories, because not only am I a panelist today, but I'm a participant because I think this panel is incredible. Happy to be here today.
Thank you all for just briefly introducing yourselves. So let's get right to it. We'd like to go around with each of you and just have you tell us a little bit more about your history, how you won your jobs, how you achieved success, and any sort of obstacles you may have faced throughout the way. So with that being said, let's start with Julie, if she doesn't mind. Julie, could you tell us about your experience auditioning for the Met Opera and how your time as the only female in the section was?
I had a dream. This dream started when I was a high school, actually junior high, when I started to play the horn and began studying with Howard Howard, the former principal horn of the Met. I decided I wanted to be just like my teacher when I grew up, and I wanted his job when I grew up. It took me until I was 32 years old in 1985. Do the math if you're curious. I'm about to turn 68. Thank you very much. In any case, my dream came true. 1985, I stepped out from behind that screen for the very final round to not only the applause of the audition committee, but the gasps. The gasps from the old men back there who could not believe their eyes that a young lady walked out from behind the screen. They were certain that I was a man, and they even figured out which man I was or wasn't. So much to their shock and surprise, I stepped out from behind the screen to create a big moment in my history and perhaps in the history of brass playing and women brass players. I led the horn section there for 25 years, some of them more beautiful than others. And I believe Marie came to one of those beautiful performances of the Tosca with my all female former student horn section. We put ourselves all together for a special night when Marie Speziale and Susan Slaughter, we got you house seats in the grand tier, I believe, so that you could look down and see all your girls down there rocking it in Tosca. We had so much fun playing for you, Marie. But that said, my career at the Met had its beautiful moments, particularly as time passed and I was able to train my students to win auditions behind the screen and get the section sounding the way I wanted it to sound. When I walked in the door, as I mentioned, the angry older men were not that pleased, and it was incredibly stressful, very, very hard on me. The job was hard enough, but the hardest part for me was managing my section. For the first, I don't know, 8 years, and I don't remember the date when Michelle Baker showed up to save my life on second horn. Wow, 18 years of bliss. But until Michelle showed up, it was tough. It was really tough. And I felt my only weapon was to play better than all of them. And I did. But imagine the kind of pressure that put me under on a daily basis. Marie, I wonder if you've experienced a similar sort of pressure in your career. I just didn't want to give them any opportunity to question my validity in that chair and in leading them. More questions about that?
Julie, I guess I was really blessed in that when I won the position with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, I had the complete support of the brass section, because realized that I was a student. I was one of their products from the College Conservatory of Music. They were my mentors. They were my teachers. Also, I had played with the orchestra almost 2 complete seasons while I was still finishing my degree at the conservatory. I was basically acting second trumpet because the second trumpet player became ill, and I stepped in at the last minute and read a concert. And on the basis of what I did in that concert, Maestro Rudolph, the conductor, asked that I be engaged for any future services. So in my junior year, I was acting second. In my senior year, I was acting third trumpet, and then the job opened up. I, like everyone else, auditioned for it. And I was not advanced simply because I had played for 2 seasons with them. So again, circling back, I had the support of my colleagues. I did not experience what you experienced.
Good for you. I'm happy you were spared that stress.
Yes, absolutely. They were always extremely supportive and very nurturing environment. They needed for me to succeed, because I was part of that program.
Makes perfect sense. And I believe in my case, they wanted me to fail. And I'm not a paranoid person, and I don't think the world's against me, and I don't believe in conspiracies, but I got the vibe really clearly that some of the older guys in my section were not happy to have me leading their show.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of the fact that kind of thinking did exist, because going back to my situation, which was slightly different than yours, and I'm also older than you and Velvet. My hurdle was being given opportunities to audition. They would not let me come audition because I was a woman.
Wow.
I mean, flat out. Even when my teacher was contacted, he would speak on my behalf and was told, flat out, she shouldn't come. And the first orchestra that I experienced that with was, wait for it, the St. Louis Symphony. So when Susan got the job, I was like, hey! screaming. It's how, like, this is great. Finally, at the time that I applied for the position in St. Louis, when I was told not to come, my teacher was told she shouldn't come. The maestro won't even listen to her, much less hire her, no matter how well she plays. Because remember, back in those days, there were no screens. Everything was wide open. And if you auditioned for a job, there wasn't you didn't get a letter telling you exactly which excerpts they wanted to hear. Anything was fair game, and everything was fair game. So it was a bit daunting.
Yeah.
Different generation. But we here, all of us, actually all 4 of us, have benefited from the fact that we now have screened auditions. Is it a perfect situation? It's not a perfect world, but it has certainly made it possible for people like Julie and Velvet and you, Richard, to be advanced without biases. But that came in my generation, because until let's see, I won the job in 1964. Wow, it's a long time ago. I can't believe I'm saying that. I won the job in 1964, and it wasn't until an organization, ICSM, International Conference of Opera and Symphony Musicians, was instituted, that we then started to have the screening auditions, or the screen auditions, I should say. I digressed, sorry. And it's one more thing that I'd like to add before we go any further, and I don't mean to be monopolizing this conversation, but I can't tell you what a thrill it is to be with the two ladies who are up in the upper corner of my little iPad here. We actually met in 1996 when Susan Slaughter put together the first, and actually the only, tour of the Monarch Brass Ensemble. And I had heard about Julie. Remember, back in those days, no internet, no Facebook, none of this technology stuff. I mean, we were tethered to 5-foot phone lines just to make phone calls, you know. I had heard about Julie through the grapevine. I had heard that there was this fabulous woman that won the job at the Met. Knew absolutely nothing about her. Velvet, sorry, sweetheart, you were not on my radar at all.
I wasn't even on my own radar.
You were a total surprise, like, whoo, you know. And we all gathered for about a week and a half, and the impact of sitting in an organization that was all women was life transforming for me. So, you know, okay, I'll keep my mouth shut now.
I just want to add one word to that: all women, all wild women. We went crazy on that tour. It was so fun.
We did. When we left, for those of you that are younger, if you don't know the ending of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, that was a series on TV. Their very last show is what we were like the night before we all had to say goodbye the next day. And there are about 14 women all walking around like this in a cluster because we just didn't want it. We didn't want it to end.
Definitely very memorable, and me seeing all of the mentors and people that I've heard about in one place. I couldn't breathe. It was to sit behind the horn section, to be in the bell of the fabulous horn players, and needing to do and play, and just suddenly elevate everything that there was about me and my playing. It was evident of what I had to do. So I can't even begin to imagine another learning situation that was as monumental in my life as that particular tour. And listening to all of the women brass players, and I can't imagine. Even today, I still think of those days and think I had to make sure I did everything. I was listening. When a sound came out of the bells of the horn players, I needed to be right there in time, or I was late. Or the brilliance of the trumpet players. I've never heard anything like that in my life, of a collection of trumpet players just being so brilliant and energetic, and there was such a fusion. I'm getting goosebumps still thinking about it. It will never go away from me. So I thank both of you for paving the way to excellence and always wanting to achieve that. There's also one story. I remember playing at one of the International Women's Brass Conferences, and I knew of Julie Landsman, and I was trying to be a soloist and wanting to set out and do something different like that. And I wanted to be a soloist. And she heard my solo presentation, and I took her aside. I don't know if you remember this. And I asked a question, and you said to me, "It was good, but not good enough. Let me tell you why." Those were great words, because I was not looking for a pat on the back. I wanted to find out, and I think I played Strauss Second Horn Concerto, by the way. But I wanted to, it wasn't for a pat on the back, like, hey, I just played your one piece, but tell me all about it. No, that wasn't it. I really needed to know what I needed to do. And I mean, I could hardly get the courage to even speak to you, but I knew I needed to. I needed to have someone say exactly what you said, and to give me some advice, and that's lived with me forever as well. So just to have my gratitude just all over the web. It's what I'm saying now doesn't even begin to say how grateful I am to the many that have come before me and paved the way. So thank you.
Velvet, we threw you into the deep end of the pool and you came out with a medal like Michael Phelps.
Yeah, I was thrown in, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh, you all are so inspiring. This is amazing to be in the presence of you on Zoom. And I know we've been getting a lot of comments, so we'll definitely start addressing some of other people's questions. But I want to sort of shift gears a little bit to Richard. You mentioned your motivational speaking, and I was wondering if you could talk about that in your childhood and how everything shaped you into the musician you are today.
Yes, first I want to thank this panel, because I think in everybody's unique way, we each are changing the social consciousness of a country. And that's huge, because I think our country is hurting. I think there are a lot of problems in our country. And my message always before I start is, I think 99% of our problems could be solved if we were just kind to one another. So, and all the people that's listening, I'm going to say, be kind to one another, and to hear the triumphs and the struggles that all of these amazing mentors have had over the past. I also want to throw out there, be conscious that excellence is void of color or gender. It's just either on the level or not. And everyone on this panel understands that. And whether they were female, whether they had ethnic issues, the bottom line is they rose to the level of excellence, and that represented their brand. So I want everyone to be conscious of that. My story: went to Peabody, went to Indiana, and stayed there longer than I ever wanted to. And just worked my butt off, understanding that I wanted to be an orchestral musician and that I only had to win one job. I never really ranked the orchestras or thought, oh man, if I don't get in this, I'm a failure. I'm just like, I just gotta win one. First it was like, I just gotta get out the first round. What's happening here? You know, and I figured, well, I gotta do one. So one step at a time, I just kept knocking, kept swinging. There were some roadblocks, and eventually I won an orchestral job. But the point of my story is this: many years later, a film company decided to write a film about my life because I was homeless. lived on the streets of Baltimore, ate out of trash cans, eaten by rats. And everyone that I went to school was like, what? What are you talking about? Because I never let that identify me. I wanted my work and my playing to be the identifier as to who I was. And so now this story is motivating and encouraging people all over the world. And unbeknown to me, I never wanted to get the doctorate at Indiana. I was like, man, y'all crazy, man. I'm gonna be in New York Phil by the time I'm 24, right? What are all these old people doing here? They must suck. Right? That was my mentality, you know, when I was in school. Like, if you didn't have a job by 24, something was wrong with you, right? We were all supposed to be millionaires by 30. Anyway, needless to say, it didn't happen that way. And as I progressed, I realized that my overall goal was to just do my best. There's this notion that you have to win, you have to kill it. You don't have to win. What you should do is strive for excellence, which is the title of this panel. And the goal is to do your best, and winning is a byproduct of doing that. And I was lucky enough to recognize that, to just do my best, and the chips fell into place. And now I've got a book, I've got a documentary, and my goal is to have everyone in the world with any kind of deficiency, whether it be financial, emotionally, to just give them the courage and the know-how that they can do it. When asked by a CBS Evening News special, Richard, you've created history. The history part is only 3 institutions in this country offered a DM as opposed to a DMA. Indiana is one of them. So I became the first African-American to get a doctorate of music in tuba, which I'm very proud of. And the tuba, as Velvet know, most of the people are all still with us. Like, the degree of that advanced degree for tuba didn't even start until the 70s. So I could just call them up and say, hey, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh yeah, call Winston Morris and all these people. But when asked by a CBS News specialist, what am I most proud of? I'm most proud of my job as a teacher, because as a teacher and mentor, I get to go to work every day and make a difference in a kid's life, because that's what someone did for me. And that's what this entire panel has done for many of the followers that look up to them. That's my story, raw tuba, and I'm sticking to it.
That is so amazing, Richard. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I just want to say thank you all for being here today. I haven't gotten a chance to say it yet. It's so inspirational, and it's so amazing to be in the same room as all 4 of you. I just wanted to address some of the questions we have in the chat. The first one is, how can we continue to ensure that all musicians, regardless of any unique identity, have an equal opportunity to succeed in the brass playing world?
I would say first and foremost, because of social media, never let the hype be better than the product. And the ultimate secret to success is really simple. And sometimes I say it and people are waiting for a magic pill, but it's number 1, work hard. Number 2, work even harder. And number 3, work as hard as you can.
I'm with you on that, Richard. I worked my tail off for goal setting. I think having a dream, setting goals, and going for it is the first step. And don't be daunted at how hard you need to work and how far you need to go. Just keep your eye on the prize and take the best pathway to that prize.
I think another part is to make sure that you're willing, or that you understand you have to do the work. Someone else isn't going to do the work for you. You have to do the work.
I'm going to echo everything my dear friends here have said. You know, I often hear it said, oh, that person won this audition, aren't they lucky? And I would think, you know, maybe there is a little bit of luck in there, but really, for me, luck is when preparation and opportunity intersect. You could have all the opportunities in the world. And if you haven't done the work, it's not going to happen. And you can do the work, and if there are no opportunities, it's not going to happen. So that, to me, I just wanted to throw that out. You know, when people say, well, aren't you lucky that you got this or that or the other?
I would like to piggyback on that because I think that's significant. I've always had an attitude of not making excuses. It's not because of this and that, but it's in spite of. In spite of all the segregation and biases Julie had to go through, she succeeded. In spite of not being able to audition, Marie still succeeded. In spite of having racial issues and things that unfortunately in our society, Velvet succeeded. So have an attitude of in spite of. And I think we all want the 3 C's. We just want a chance to make the right choices to see the kind of change we want to see. And boy, did this universe give everyone on this panel a chance, and they knocked it out the park.
And I believe sometimes adversity is an inspiration. It was to me. I kicked myself in the butt in spite of, as you'd say, Richard, any adversity I might experience or might have grown up with. This was my ticket out of adversity, and it fueled my fire. My fire is still burning bright. It's just more in the direction of mentoring my students and swimming.
You know, Julie, that just evoked a memory that I have. I was just a little kid. I had just maybe been playing for, I don't know, 9 months, a year, year and a half, who knows? And maybe I should preface this by saying that I grew up in inner city, Tampa, Florida, Ybor City. It was the cigar capital of the world, El Barrio Latino. Everybody was in there. And my dad, self-taught musician, formed a conjunto, a Cuban conjunto. That's what the Cuban Latin bands, now we know as salsa bands, that's what they were called back in the day, and even now. At any rate, the band from time to time would come to rehearse at our home. My mom and dad would move back all the furniture in the living room and dining room, and everybody would congregate and rehearse in our living room. And I had just started to play the trumpet. I hadn't even started private lessons yet, but I would pick things up by ear. And I remember one particular rehearsal, I was practicing while some of the band members were starting to come in. And one gentleman in particular noted that he pretty much said out loud that I sounded like someone stepping on a cat's tail. And that stayed with me as a little kid. And you know what?
Yeah.
I internally vowed to myself that I was going to work hard so that no one was ever going to say that about my playing again. And I could have been all of 10 or 11 years old. And you know, that little nugget, you know, that little seed was planted somewhere back there, past all this bushy hair. And I owe that man a debt of gratitude, because he propelled me, whether he realized it or not. And the other thing too is that when I shared that with my parents, they were so supportive and said to me, you know, you can do anything you want to do. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do it. And you go and just try to do the best you can. It's that simple. It's that simple. And I think that's what we have all lived, just to do the best we can.
Thank you all so much for touching on that. We do have another question in the chat, so I'll just throw this one out here. Here it is. Question for those, this is from Sarah, I can't say your last name, I'm so sorry. Question for those who did not feel welcome in their sections. As you struggled to just survive the realities of your hostile scene and the critical need to advocate for yourself to thrive, did you ever feel pressure to self-censor if you found out about or heard rumors about inappropriate behavior in your organization?
Would you mind saying that again, please?
Yes. So these are for people who do not feel welcome in their sections. As you struggled to survive the realities of your hostile scene and the critical need to advocate for yourself to thrive, did you ever feel pressure to self-censor if you found out about or heard rumors about inappropriate behavior in your organization?
I don't put those two topics in the same category.
I don't either.
If you want to split it into two pieces, I could respond, but to respond to the hostility from my section and how did that lead to me censoring any inappropriate behavior in my organization, they're disconnected for me.
Me too, and that's why I asked to have the question repeated, because I felt like it felt segmented to me.
Sure. So let's go with the second half of it. Did you ever feel pressure to self-censor if you found out about or heard rumors about inappropriate behavior in your organization?
Are we back to the Me Too sexual harassment conversation? Is that where we're going here?
It could be, or it could be maybe just any other sort of inappropriate comments.
Well, as Marie and I have both stated, and I'd love to hear from Richard and Velvet, those inappropriate comments drove me to excellence. I was just going to show them. There was no conversation about it. You have a problem with me? Listen to this. You've never heard it so good. So that's where I went with that. As far as sexual inappropriateness, there's a great Italian expression. Can I curse on Facebook? Don't shit where you eat. Anybody. Wrong. Don't go there.
That's
Also,
not Italian.
Is that not Italian?
Is that Italian?
That's what I was. Well, Carmine Caruso told it to me, so I presumed it was.
He probably just used it. He just said it in Italian. You thought it was, well, and sadly, my folks aren't around to corroborate that, but I never heard it attributed to the Italians.
Well,
I wouldn't put it past us, actually.
Yeah. Also, don't put stuff on social media. Inappropriate. If you're going to post on social media, make it good things in the plus column about your profession, about your success, about your hopefulness, wishing people well, but don't put nasty stuff there. There's so much vitriolic stuff on now about my deceased boss, James Levine, who, for me, taught me so much about music, and everybody was aware of his inappropriate behavior. No one in the orchestra was going to turn him into management. Management knew. So it wasn't about us being silent. It was, how do you exist in this broken system? Where do you find your way around so that you can be comfortable and do your best work? So I'm clever. I want to do well. I'll find the way to make it work in spite of whatever peculiar behavior various people have, as long as it's not coming at me. If it's coming at me, that's a different conversation.
Oh, Velvet, you want to speak to this?
Well, I think for me, the major thing that I had to kind of overcome or was everyone assuming that I won the positions that I did because of being a woman and being a Black woman. And so I don't know, is it 3 decades or so of playing, I have I feel that there's still that burden to make sure that no one can ever say, oh, she really wasn't good enough to get that position. And um, similar to what Julie was saying, play so that no one can say you don't belong there. And that's still today. It doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't stop. It still feels as though I need to prove um, that someone wasn't wrong 30 years ago hiring me. And but you just have to um, make sure, not to say, oh, you want to be twice as good or anything like that, but it's not about comparing. It's just making sure that you no one can say that wasn't um, that wasn't uh, excellent, or she doesn't deserve the position. And uh, uh, my goodness, probably for the 3 different positions that I've had, I know that rumor was always out there. Friends would tell me, "Hey, I heard someone say that you only got that position because of what you look like." And every time I play, I'm making sure that no one can back that up.
I think oh, I think that life is fair because it's unfair to everyone. Things are going to happen. I think what you want to do when you're in these situations is just be mindful of the characteristics and environmental animal that you're feeding, because that's the one that's going to grow the most. And I like what Julie said. I always feed the positivity. I figure if you're a jerk, it's eventually going to catch up to you, and people are going to see what product you're feeding the most. In terms of feeling like you're stifled or like you're being prohibited from excelling, everyone should remember that great people aren't born great, they grow great. And so that's your job when you're in that section, is to go greater than you even were when you started. And to be great, you just have to remember that you have to just get started. And sometimes getting started is silence. I think sometimes we forget that, in music, I tell my students, silence is a musical note. It serves a purpose. And sometimes you don't want to dump noise on top of silence no more than you want to play in the hole when we're in an orchestra, because that's not going to work out for you. So sometimes we feel the need to be the hero, when actuality, sometimes in life, you just have to be your own hero and follow suit with excellence. I think it's the best weapon you can have. I'm really not just saying it. Kindness is also the best weapon you can have. And then, like these ladies said, when it comes directed at you, have that mechanism of, oh, you must not know me, but let me show you. That's the best way to combat all this negativity, all the things that's happening. Don't talk about it. Don't hype it up. Just let me show you, as Velvet said, why I was hired. And when people talk that nonsense, oh, she won this job because of this, I'm like, yeah, 3, 4, 5 times, 6 times. Like, you must be out of your mind. So that's my 2 cents to that comment. And I hope, as a country and a world, we can start feeding the positivity. We can start feeding moving forward with excellence, and stop laying our head on the bed of negativity and injustice.
Or being a victim. Take responsibility for your boundaries and your actions, and make sure you're living in a way that makes you proud of yourself, and not look to the external to validate who you are. Be strong inside, and don't let, if a guy is coming after you. I remember a particular elevator ride on tour with the Met, where my second horn at that time, unbeknownst to me until that moment, was in love with me. I had no idea until he stuck his tongue in my throat. I thought, oh my God, what was that thing that just entered my mouth? That was disgusting. And I'm laughing because it was so out of nowhere. And the guy had a drinking issue, and I believe he must have been pretty smashed. Maybe I was too. I don't know. But that was the last time he was getting anywhere close enough to do any kind of personal violation. He kind of, really receded in my world, and I didn't give him the room and was so happy when Michelle Baker showed up as my second horn. There were no throats or tongues violated in that relationship.
Julie, you have led a very colorful life. I knew it before the discussion, but it's been confirmed in spades. But going back to Velvet, what you just said, Velvet, your will to succeed, to always be the best, that's the thing that's in your DNA, and it will always be in your DNA. And because you have that in your DNA, you will always succeed. I'm a firm believer of that.
Well, thank you, Mary.
Once you forfeit that, you don't want to forfeit that, my dear.
No.
Don't ever forfeit that. Don't give that away to anybody.
Nope.
As long as you claim it, you will be successful.
Thank you. More to
It's
do.
a driving force that we all have, or we wouldn't be sitting here right now. Julie, you'd be, probably eating breakfast. Velvet, you'd be taking care of your son. I'd be playing with my dog. And Richard, I don't know what you would be doing, but I don't know you well enough. So I'm not going to improvise here.
There's so much to learn every day. There's more to learn, and more steps to take forward. I can't imagine even waking up without having that as a goal.
I think also what's being displayed here with the relationships of these ladies is the networking, the entity of people you meet, the bond you meet. And I'm a firm believer. I have friends that are dear and close to me that keep me in check. And I think, I can't believe I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to mention 3 C's again. You across your life, you want to meet people that influence you. You want to meet people that can coach you. You want to meet people that can counsel you, and you want to meet people that can cheerlead for you. And I think you want to include those people in your circle as you push to those levels of greatness.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And to piggyback on that, I think you need to be really vigilant about keeping people in your life who are going to be supportive and who are going to give you positive energy, not negative energy. If there's negative energy, run for the door. Did I just stun everybody? I'm sorry.
We're all shocked. I'll chime in with a quick question also from the chat from Landon, and this is something that a bunch of other people have been asking, and I know that has always come up in the panels, and especially now. So we are wondering, as this is what Landon wrote, as a future music educator, how can I promote equality in my students? And I know all of you have incredible teaching experiences, and so there's a lot that could be said about this issue.
I will start a little bit. I think one of the things we want to do is promote equity for our students. And there's a bit of a difference between equity and equality. So we want to make sure that we promote the equity in our students. As a music educator, for instance, in a classroom or the band room that you may have, one of the things that I suggest, because I teach a lot of music ed students, so I have a talk with them, you know, every once in a while, but really their last semester, their last few weeks before they are off student teaching, and just to ask what kind of teacher they're going to be, and to make sure that they provide an equitable um, um, environment for their students, to make sure that when they have that band room, that every student that's in there can see somebody on the wall that looks like them, that's successful, and then they also listen to and guide the students to musical interests that they have. Now, this does not take away all of the talk that we've had today about excellence. Excellence is the umbrella on top of all of that. But we want to make sure we are always lifting up our students and guiding them and making sure that they know that there's no other way to proceed other than their best efforts. We've talked about that today, and to strive for excellence in all that they do.
I agree 100%. And I think we have to change our mindset in education, because it's this against that. I believe that we have to preserve tradition, because that's what got us to where we are today. We have to have the mindset of tradition in addition to. And I think if we adapt this, we can create an equitable and diverse environment for everyone. As far as talking and inspiring the students, I think we need to light a spark on imagination, because sometimes we're so rigid. I think this big component to being successful is to think about something that doesn't exist, that is needed, and then create it. Because obviously if it doesn't exist, the world needs it. And then a tribute to my teacher, Daniel Perantoni, always the 7 P's, we call it, and everyone can write it down. It's called prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. So when you go out, this is when Velvet was talking about, effort and all these things, make sure you do your research to support the cause. Don't jump on a bandwagon just because someone said you should. I think when we're talking about equity, diversity, and everything, we all want to change the environment, but sometimes we jump on the bandwagon unknowingly. The thing that I take most from the civil rights movement when I look at these historical films and stuff is that they never had a movement without leaflet and a pamphlet. Like, you couldn't really just jump in the march without a serious effort to educate you of the problems. So I think if we can diagnose the problems and then proceed forward in a manner that adapts what came before, that accepts what came before, and improve it, is the better option than just being combative. We all want the same thing. And the final thing I'm going to say, if we all want the same thing, which is greatness, excellence, and to improve our world, then where is the argument? So honesty is really important. If we're fighting and there's an issue, then we have to really question if we all really want the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Richard. And I was just hoping that you could give us the 7 P's or 6 P's or however many P's once more for our audience, so we could catch it once more.
Prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Right.
And I got to tell you, I've been in situations, Velvet being an amazing tuba artist, Carol Yance, where I've had to be in a room or around them playing, and my inner thoughts were, wow, I could sound like that if I practiced a whole lot more. They elevated the musicality to such a level of imagination where I was in rooms and situations where I went, oh, I didn't know it could be played like that. I will be back. And my point of sharing this story is that sometimes because of tradition, we are stifling kids' imagination. We're stifling the ability for them to do something different. And we should embrace those differences because it's going to lead to something you never thought of. And when you work to the point of exhaustion, when you're just fed up, that's where the new beginning, that's where the new ideas start, because you've exhausted what you already know. And now you can begin to a level that wasn't previously available to you. And sometimes we're so afraid to go there. Well, I don't want to offend anyone, or, we can't do that. Well, let's figure out if we can do that. Let's plan, let's investigate, let's look at this, and let's see if we can make your hope, your vision a reality. So that's an attachment to the 7 Ps. But Velvet, you haven't been privy to that information, but I've sat in many of concerts and heard you play as a soloist and just went, wow. And amazing. We laugh amongst ourselves. I was like, man, she played the hell out of one note, dude. That's just a credit. I think you have one of the best sounds in vibrato in the business.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Wow. As does the lady up at the upper left-hand corner. I feel like I'm on some game show here. We're going to get a prize at the end of this. But talking about sound, Richard, and I think Velvet will probably acknowledge that as a young tuba performer sitting with monarch breasts, that she was very likely influenced by the sound from that lady that played. I want to tell you, our big piece on that tour, which by the way was conducted by Marin Alsop. So entire brass ensemble of women, conducted by a woman. It was just a great experience again. Our big piece on our program was the Tomasi liturgical fanfares, which has there's a lot in there for all the brass instruments, but particularly the horns, and especially principal horn. It has some really high, touchy spots, not for the faint of heart, but I had the sound of Julie and our horn section in my ears for the longest time after that tour. And realized too that at that point, that was the year that I had announced my retirement from the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. So I had been blessed with, playing in an orchestra with some really terrific musicians, great musicians. But there was just something about the sound that came out of that horn section that there are no words. It's just something that you just you feel it in your whole body. And that whole experience, going back to that tour, was maybe for me so meaningful, because I did grow up in a generation where I was the only little girl on stage. I was the only little girl, not just in the trumpet section, but I was the only little girl on stage. And I can remember, and I think Julie and Velvet will remember this, when we all gathered together, most of us didn't know each other, but we met at the university in Oklahoma. And the first time we started reading through the Tomasi, by the time we got to the chorale where the horns played, I was in tears in a rehearsal. That's how impactful this experience was, to look around and to realize, oh my God, here I am, and I'm in this wonderful, wonderful musical ensemble. And I'm hearing all this great music being made, and I'm not the only little girl on stage. We're all girls.
Marie,
It-
you're inspiring me to think of something. Uh, you know, whether gender, ethnicity, or color in place. You know, I've been in awkward situations where someone would say, "It's so great to see you on stage, not hear you." You know why, right? And my response is, well, you know what? We all play the same notes. And I think that's something to keep in mind as you tell this story, that, you know, regardless of a gender, ethnicity, or color, when it comes to making music and creating something special in that group of characterization of people, we're all playing the same notes.
yeah.
I remember that I felt as though I wanted to be an extension of that horn section. It was just so awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Seriously, it was just, yeah. In fact, I was so moved. Everyone, when we all parted, everybody went to different airports and cars or whatever, and I was left all by myself that last night on tour in Kansas City. And I can remember just all of a sudden feeling so alone. I wound up writing that poem that ultimately got published in our IWBC newsletter. Mm-hmm. And it was as though it was almost like an out of body experience. Next thing I knew, the hand was moving and the poem came out, and it's like, wow. It was just, you know, somehow my emotions came out, not in music, but in words. Go figure, you know.
I'd love to see that poem again. My head is kind of like throbbing from all the accolades. They're hard to take in. But thank you. Thank you. I miss that player actually. It's been a while since I was at that level of excellence. When was that? What year?
1996.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, you guys were just basically, well, you were in the middle, at the height of your career. Bella was basically just getting started, and I went on to play 2 or 3 more months with the symphony orchestra, and I was supposed to be retired at the end of, October of '96. Instead, I wound up being busier after the orchestra job than when I was with the orchestra. Who knew that I was going to have the kind of career after the orchestra job?
Right.
No way to know. Did we lost Richard?
Maybe he had to use the restroom or can get a cup of coffee or let the dog in. Where'd you go, Richard? There you are.
My stepkid decided to blast the music, so I had to tell him I was in the master class. Sorry.
That's so funny. That's definitely something that we've all had to kind of work our way around, is making sure whenever we have we need the quiet time, we have the quiet time. So you have to like make a schedule with who you live with. I have another question from the chat. This is from Russ Ebersole. He asks, how do you express your life experiences in your music?
How do you not express your life experiences in music?
That's what music's all about.
Right. Everything that comes out of us is processed through our life experiences.
Yep.
Does he mean something slightly different? Maybe we're misinterpreting what he's asking.
I think that does answer the question. Maybe it's like where would be a good place to start? Maybe you know all the notes, you know all the rhythms. Where do you take it from there? What's the next step in order to express yourself musically?
I have lots of ideas about that. It looks like Marie might also.
Go ahead, feel free. I feel like I'm monopolizing this conversation, just go ahead. Jump in there, kiddo.
Well, one of the things that I practice, which I did before I came to the screen today, is something called metta meditation. And it's about loving kindness. And if you operate from your heart and play from your heart, and perhaps even direct it toward those that you love, I sometimes will put a picture in my heart of somebody I love that I'm going to be dedicating my performance to. And I've got some very particular ones that into my mind. My mother had just passed. We played Brahms Piano Concerto with the Met in Carnegie. Well, there was my mother's spirit hovering over the top row of Carnegie Hall. And I have goosebumps describing the altered state that I went into in my heart when I played and saw my mother and directed my notes to her. This is beyond technique. You've got to have flawlessly trustable technique to let it go and just go from your heart. So that'll circle me back to the Caruso method, which is where I've developed my solid, reliable technique and teach it to my students to free myself to play from that very tender, loving heart space.
And that's such a perfect transition into our next question from the chat from Jenny. I'm just going to write what Jenny wrote. So Jenny met you all at IWBC at ASU a few years ago. And it was so neat to meet a tuba legend. So how would you all encourage young people to overcome shyness when playing in an ensemble? I have many students struggling with confidence when playing.
I'll start. One of the ways that I have my students get used to playing in front of others and to calm their nerves is to do it on a regular basis. And so in their studio classes, the students are regularly playing. And the more that they play, then we understand um, um, that, okay, this was performance number one, and you um, you performed and you were nervous and so forth and so on. So let's talk about the different things. But there are a couple of the major part also is that we need to be prepared. We have to rely on the fact that we are prepared to play that performance. And if we have doubt, then that also gets to the nerves. But if we know we're absolutely prepared, um, then we go to the stage. And some people do have stage fright, and you have to find ways of working it out. I just have just the two things to say, and I know others have others, but make sure you're absolutely prepared. And then again, I said one of the things that have helped, and I've had some students that just would shake uncontrollably and would just almost drop their instruments. That the work that I did with that particular student was to have them play 10 minutes in studio class each time, something all the time, all the time, all the time. And that did work for that particular student. So if we have to practice performing, but we need to be prepared, absolutely prepared when we are about to perform.
I will add to this. I think it's just as important to fail as it is to succeed. And here goes Richard again with another acronym: failing, finding an important lesson in needed growth. If you fail, there's something that you needed to know that you didn't know that you now know, so you can improve it. That's really my approach to nerves and shyness. Go for it, because preventing or thinking that you're not going to fail is foolish. It's going to happen. And I think preparing, like Velvet said yourself, to get better each time as a result of and absorbing what you've learned progressively, it just gets better and better. And it really does become habit to be able to hit the stage and give it your best.
Richard, what you've just highlighted, again, evokes another childhood memory. As a little kid, I must have expressed to my dad some concerns about either not playing well or missing notes or whatever. But very early on in my childhood, what was implanted in my head was what he told me. He said, go play, have a good time, and if you're going to make a mistake, make it loud and clear so everybody knows who made it. And you know what? I think from childhood, that kind of took the stress off my back because I would just go into every performance very excited. I mean, obviously, I would like, again, thinking about what Velva said, I would be absolutely prepared. But then the whole mentality, he gave me a green light to crack a note as long as I was doing my best effort and making music. It was always about making music, go have a good time, go make music.
I could add one thing to that, which just happened in my Juilliard horn class a few days ago. Two of my young men had a very tough time playing a mock audition. We're on Zoom every week, and each week different players play or we have different conversations. And these two didn't do well. And I have noticed a pattern over the many years of being a teacher that when a student falls, that's their most potent moment to learn. They can either sink or swim, but most of them really want to rise to the top. And I try to help them not only feel the difficulty of their failed performance, but where does this mean we need to go next? What sort of pre-performance routine do you need to sharpen up? I'm all about getting ready for that performance, whether it's in horn class, whether it's an audition. How do you prepare yourself? And when things start to roll against you, how do you get back on track? There's so many techniques to teach and to learn that I've had to do to play my best under extreme pressure. And there's so many times that come to mind. And I mentioned this to my horn class. The opening of Act 3 of Götterdämmerung is the first horn playing the Siegfried call alone. And it's usually backstage. Well, the one time I did it on stage in Frankfurt with the Met, I was practicing it up to the minute Levine came out to give the downbeat, and I couldn't play. Nothing was coming out. I was terrified. What was going to happen when he walked out and gave me a downbeat? It scared the bejesus out of me. I don't know how I did it, but I did it because I had no choice. I set my timing up. I did everything I knew I had to do to make it work. And thank goodness it worked because it didn't until he walked out and gave me the downbeat. Terrifying. What did I learn? I guess when you're terrified, you can still do it.
I think it's important to realize we psych ourselves out too. No one is really sitting in the audience or behind the screen going, man, I really hope Richard screws this up. I hope he jacks this up to the best of his ability. The people on the other side want you to do well, and you can use that as encouragement.
Yeah, you want to welcome your audience into your music making. You always want to kind of like reach out and give them this great big bear hug and like, hey, I'm doing this for you, listen to me.
I have just a little levity with stress of playing. Of course, there's the Beatlo solo for tuba, and I was a few years back. I was playing this with an orchestra, and at that time my son was a toddler, and would often walk into my room and pull on my sleeve as I'm practicing, mommy, 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 right? And I'm in the middle of practicing the solo, and so I continue to play, right? And when I got to the concert, I'm thinking, wow, this is much easier. I don't have someone pulling at my arm. So there went that stress that could have been there, or it had been in the past when I had the opportunity to perform it before. But it's like, yeah, I think I can play it without someone saying, mommy, 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 as I'm trying to keep the mouthpiece and my fingers on the valves. So just a little levity.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it was a real life. I mean, that really happened where I felt like, oh, I can do this. I don't have anyone pulling my arm. Real life.
And I want to actually throw out this question to the three of you, because as I circle back and, kind of look at my career now that it's in the rearview mirror, I don't know that actually playing for anyone. And I mean, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is I probably used to put as much pressure on myself while I was preparing as anybody could put on me. So that it almost felt like once that downbeat came, there was no pressure, because my expectations of what I had to do to prepare felt, I don't know if I'm making sense, but do you all, did you all feel the same way about that?
You're making total sense. This generation has it lucky. They don't have to go to a card catalog to find the score or the LP and then try to figure out where it is. I think today, in terms of having that CD quality performance, it's easy. I never play a piece, even if I played it 50 times. I get the score. The score is embedded in my tuba part. No way I'm missing my entrance, because the 30 measures before is really written out like a first grader in my part. So I'm watching everybody's part. I think score study, recordings, you can play along now. Sometimes I wonder if my skill set is advanced as a generation before me, because they didn't have all the recordings I'm privy to. I can play with New York Phil as many times as I want, and I make rehearsals in my preparation. But the point is, I prepare so well that every mistake I would have made in that first rehearsal, I made it the 2 weeks before practicing and preparing for the piece. And that's really how it goes. And I think if you are afraid of a passage or you're scared of it, you should go immediately to that and work it. Because I had instances where I would have etudes and I would circle it for Federal, and he goes, let's start right here. And then he would go, you mean to tell me you circled that and then you still came in here and sounded like that on it? And the point is, if we're honest with ourselves, we know the problem spots are the things we need to fix. And you have to be aggressive. I say you have to be gangster about annihilating any deficiencies you might have.
Great. Yeah. Yep.
Amazing. So I will just jump in here really quick. We do have about 10 minutes left, so we are going to start the wrapping up process. But with this being said, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. And thank you so much for answering many of the questions that our viewers have asked this far. So with this being said, I would like if all of you could share a final thought, a piece of advice for the culmination of this chat that we've had today. So Marie, maybe if you'd like to start with a final piece of advice or thought.
Oh, wow, seems like I've been spouting off a lot of advice already. I'm not sure that I can. I'm a little speechless right now, actually, reacting to what Richard just said. Can I pass if someone else wants to jump in? I really don't know that I have much more. Maybe if after I hear one of my friends here say something, maybe they'll inspire me to add on to what they're saying. But I honestly don't have anything right now. Sorry, this has been such an unbelievably, in many respects, a very cathartic experience and a very warm experience. And again, no words right now. No words. So someone take me off the hot seat.
Or just randomly going, my 2 cents would be, as we face adversities and challenges in this world, embrace the word disadvantage and move the prefix DIS from it and turn it into an advantage. Don't be overwhelmed by the entire staircase that's before you. Just focus on the first step, then the next to achieve your goals. that would be some hearty advice I would give to any listeners right now.
And I'm a little bit different, Richard. Some people are very process oriented, and I believe you are, based on what you just said. I need a goal, and then I'll do the process. I'm a goal oriented gal. If I don't have a performance like I haven't for a year, practicing has been a struggle, especially at age almost 68 and semi retired. It's been tough because my goal of a performance or of not wanting to publicly humiliate myself because I'm so darn out of shape, it's not there. So, what about that process? I mean, I'm trying to do my basics every day. I do some Carusos, but I can't wait for that goal of another performance, and I actually have one on April 16th. So I've got a little bit of lead time to do my routine and start playing music so that I enjoy it more than long tone scales articulation, which is the basics I've been trying to maintain. So it's not too hideous when I try to pull it back together to perform.
I'm glad you said that because everyone needs to know too that there's more than one way to get to the mountaintop. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And many people who are process oriented get there just the same as someone who's goal oriented. And sometimes, if you're goal oriented, you don't do the process thoroughly. So, or sometimes if you get stuck in the process, well, where are we going with this? So, you need to have the right balance that fits your personality of goal and process. Did I inspire you, Marie?
Um, Actually, yes. But I was going to be kind of bottom line, just saying that we only have one opportunity at a first impression. So no matter who you are, where you are, or what you're doing, make sure that that first impression is a good one. And that's my just simple advice.
One of the things that I sometimes like to think about is posing the question that if you knew that you could not fail, what would you achieve? And so, I, as I pose, that's a question I'm posing to everyone. If you could not fail, what would you achieve? Um, and have that set as your goal, and just continue to do all of the things that we've talked about today. But set your path and don't think that there are any limitations. I don't think um, it. My path just kept going. I didn't sit down. Other than when I was about 16 years old, I told my best friend I wanted to make a living playing my tuba. But I didn't know exactly how that was going to be. I didn't set what that was going to entail. But if, don't fail. Just keep going.
I think I can sum this up based on what I've heard for everyone to leave with that parting feel good. Aim high, break records, do it now. Focus on the do it now part because procrastination is the arrogant assumption that God or the universe owes you more time to do what you've already had time to do. And I think everyone here has aimed high, has broken records, and they did it in their own way.
Thank you so much for that. I think that was a great way to wrap
Very
up
fitting.
this session. Yes, absolutely. So again, everybody who's been watching on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us today. This conversation will be up on Facebook until Facebook, I guess, ends. And with that being said, this will also eventually be up on YouTube. So if you know anybody who unfortunately couldn't make it today, please do share this with them. We would love everybody to be a part of these conversations, ask questions and be a part of the movement moving forward. Here at Brass Out Loud, our mission is to highlight underrepresented voices. And with that being said, we want to hear from all of you. So with that being said, Brass Out Loud will continue to have events throughout the year. Stay tuned for some exciting events coming up in which you can support us and we can support you. We're very excited for the things that we have ahead. So don't miss out. You can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, all at Brass Out Loud. And you can check out any events or anything that we're planning on our website, brassoutloud.com. Lastly, before we completely wrap up, I just want to model our winter sale shirts. With that being said, we actually do have a couple long sleeve and we have a couple crew neck sweatshirts for sale, sizes small through extra large. If you want to grab one, please contact us directly and we can set this up for you. The long sleeves are $29.95. The crew necks are $40. So please contact us if you are interested, because we don't have that many and we will sell out. So with that being said, thank you, Julie, Velvet, Marie, and Richard for joining us today. We had a great time. We hope you had a great time and we hope our listeners had a great time. So everybody, please enjoy the rest of your Saturday and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.